officially after that.
Sweet.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. I think we're live now. So I'm going to go ahead and play our intro, and I'll see you all on the flip side.
You're listening to the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast with your host, Popo Jagaimo.
All right. Well, lolly ho, everyone. Welcome to the 13th episode of the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast. So excited to be here with a guest for the very first time. One of, I would say, the best brand new Final Fantasy XIV content creators out there on the internet, and fellow Parasite Eve enthusiast. So Heather
Yes.
Ramirez from HeatherJustPlay. Thanks for being here, Heather.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm honored.
Care to give everyone like your kind of background and like where you came from, why Final Fantasy XIV inspired you to come down this gaming route, and kind of your history on YouTube?
Yeah, so I've actually been a lifelong gamer. I've been playing games since forever. I've just always, loved video games. And 6 years ago, I basically came up with the idea to start my own business. And that's kind of where gaming took a pause for me because I had to throw all of me into building my business, and my business was heavily centered around content creation and helping to educate and empower people to utilize digital media to achieve meaningful goals. Basically, I wanted to teach people how they can use platforms like YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and stuff like that to be able to achieve whatever they set out to do, whether that's apply for a job, start a business, connect with people, build community, stuff like that. This was 6 years ago. So I feel like what I just explained is very easy to do now with how far platforms have come. But
Yeah, when we first started the show, we were like pre-recording on Discord, and then like
yeah,
creating a mask in OBS so that the like little glowing green
yeah,
lights didn't show up. And
yeah.
now with
I mean,
Restream, it's just like one link and you're good to go.
now it's a push of a button. So it's funny when I talk about it, but yeah, so I've been creating on YouTube since 2016. I started out with a vlog to just document my journey on and building a business just because I thought it would be it was super scary. I quit my job. I had no plan. And I was like, I think this would just be like a really cool thing for me to be able to look back on with no intention of like, you know, it actually growing or anything really coming out of that. And it ended up becoming my full-time thing. Um and so I feel kind of odd with where I'm at right now because I took such a break from video games, and like in the past 6 years, I feel like so much happened. Like I didn't have any of the new consoles for a really long time, and I was just kind of like out of it. Every time I did pick up a game, it was always like one I've already played, just because like I know this is good, and I just kind of want the nostalgia factor. Anyway, fast forward to earlier this year, my brother just kept talking about Final Fantasy 14. Like, he's recommended a lot of games to me before, but this was just like nonstop. And I think it's because he was
He went full evangelist on you then.
yeah, like he was going through Shadowbringers, and I feel like once you get to Shadowbringers, that's when you really start
Mhm.
talking to people and trying to like recruit, like, you got to try this game out. There's a free trial, the whole thing. And so I was like, oh, I just really don't want to get into an MMO because, I had played World of Warcraft and I was like, I'm 37, like I'm past this. Like I can't imagine, sitting in front of the computer for hours. Like I don't know why I thought that, but I was just like,
Mhm.
I can't imagine going back to that. But I was like, well, it's hard to argue with free. So,
It
you
really
know,
is. The free
yeah.
trial is expansive, to say the least. As
Yeah.
a
And
matter
I
of
was
fact, I'm
like,
I'm wearing my Graha Tia, like, you can't see it, but the rest of it says, like, wants you to join Final Fantasy
oh,
XIV
really?
with the free, trial all the way through Heaven's Ward, yada, 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 so,
Yeah. I know. I
yeah.
didn't even realize. I found out later that it was a meme. Um, but yeah, so basically, long story short, is I fell in love. It just reignited like the love I've always had for video games, and I just couldn't stop talking about it. And finally I had the itch of like, I've made hundreds, thousands of YouTube videos. Why wouldn't I make a video about this thing that I'm absolutely obsessed with? Like, just I'm so in love with it, and it just feels wrong not to at least challenge myself creatively to make a video about it. But it didn't feel right making a video about it on my vlog channel, just because it's just a completely different audience. This would be like, what the heck? Now we're doing video games, like, so then I started a whole new channel, and that's how we ended up here. And I've just been having so much fun. I put everything else on pause, and I'm just going to do this just because it's just like, I don't know, I kind of feel like everything that I learned in my entrepreneurial experience, YouTube experience, content creator experience, plus my love for games is really combining in a way that like it feels supernatural, like in a way that I haven't felt on my journey as a business owner ever. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna do this. Like, we're just gonna, do this all out and see where I end up in 6 months. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
me.
it sounds like, I mean, you kind of fell into it in a way, like, just Final Fantasy 14 kind of inspired you to go this gaming route and kind of like delve into it. Me, I fell into it just purely on a goof. Like, I was just like, I'm just gonna make memes and stupid things that like I wish I could see on the internet, and I started there, and eventually it turned into podcasting, and it's slowly morphing into something else, because for a while it was just me taking my anger out on Blizzard Entertainment, being a 14-year World of Warcraft refugee turned Final Fantasy 14 enthusiast. And I felt like, Final Fantasy 14 inspired me because I feel like in a way it saved me from my WoW addiction.
So when did you get into it?
So I've tried many times.
Yeah.
So I think if I recall correctly, on PS3, I
Okay.
believe I tried the pre A Realm Reborn, like original 1.0
Like
Final
1.0.
Fantasy
Okay.
14.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I was like, what is this? I don't understand the controls. I was like, this isn't the Valley of Trials and Duratar, and where's Orgrimmar and all this stuff. And I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I pretty much noped out of it really, really fast. Then I tried it again in the like post ARR, maybe Heaven's Word time period, because someone I knew was really trying to tell me like, it's so great, like it's amazing. And I was like, yeah, and I'm still playing WoW, and the majority of my friends are playing WoW, and so that it fizzled really quickly there. I probably got up to like level 10 and just quit. Then the time that it really stuck was towards the end of Stormblood.
Okay.
And then I was basically just gearing up and playing through the MSQ to get to Shadowbringers, because I was excited to play Shadowbringers. A few of my friends were going to play it, and I played through Shadowbringers. Shadowbringers wrecked me emotionally, like pretty much any other person that's got a heart.
Yeah.
And played through 5.0, and then pretty much just went back to WoW and was like, all right, I can't invest in another end game and all this other stuff, because I only have so many hours in the day. I'm we're basically functionally the same age. I'll be 37 in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, oh, I can't commit to this. And then when I kind of like Shadowlands came out, and I really just fell out of rating, and I didn't want to go through all the systems grind of WoW. I was like, oh, I'll go try 14 because I can play it. It was during the pandemic, and I was staying at my parents' house, and I wanted to play something on the couch. So I was literally playing on my iPad through like PS5 remote play.
Oh,
and
really?
and I
That's
was
funny.
just doing kind of random things, just hanging out and playing the game and everything, and very casually, and then got back into the MSQ, and then Endwalker came out, and I was like, I'm done with WoW. Like I'm done. Like I want to play this game instead. And then I kind
Yeah.
of delved fully into it. Hey Kevin, hey Reaver, thanks for coming out and hanging out. So yeah, that's my journey into
That's funny.
14.
Yeah, it's like really interesting to hear how people get into it, because I think that my impression is that I don't know, I feel like the people who started playing, say, in the past 6 months are, like, not online, or they're,
Mm,
like, super sprouts, like, they're super
mm,
new, uh, don't really have any opinions yet kind of thing, and then I'm here, man, probably, like, after Stormblood what was when I was like, "Okay, I need to start looking at podcasts, I need to subscribe to the channels, I need to, like, I'm in it.
yeah.
I'm in the world.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, and but there was still such a gap between, like, me being a new fan and, like, you know, it's like everyone's still speaking another language because I
Yeah.
don't understand the memes, I don't understand the, like, the inside jokes that have been around for years, you know?
Mm.
So,
Well, and
yeah,
there's a lot of
it's just
systems in the game too that, you know, from what I understand about your experience and like not being an MMO like player for a long time, like
yeah.
just learning the new systems in a new game is daunting. I feel that way every time I start a new JRPG. It's just like, okay, new combat system, new
Yeah.
combos, like new story. And that
Yeah.
tutorial is one of those biggest barriers to entry, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely was for me.
So when did you like you just officially started like 3 months ago? 4 months ago?
May. Yeah,
May. Okay.
May, and, like,
5.
my brother hyped it up, so my brother's Kevin in the chat, so he
Uh-huh.
hyped it up, like, super just, like anyone else after playing Shadowbringers would be hyping it up, so and I just was so not convinced because it was an MMO. I just, like, I just I was like, "Ah, whatever," and I played it begrudgingly,
Mhm.
and I felt like I was looking for reasons to not play it because I just didn't wanna get into it, and I remember, my husband, Tom, and I talk about this all the time. He was like, when you were first playing that game, you were just not into it. I wasn't convinced. I was like, I guess I'll put in an hour,
Mhm.
whatever." And even after AIR, even getting into Heaven's Ward, which was like, "Oh my god, this is the one that's supposed to, like, change everything." I still was like, you know, "Am I missing something or what?" And then I don't even know what the moment was that kind of shifted it for me to go full fan,
Darn, that
but
was my next question.
yeah, no, it wasn't like a particular moment. It was just like
Mhm.
I think maybe what's different about my experience is that because I played it so condensed, like 12
Mhm.
12-hour days, like many days in a row, um, I just it's like I really got connected to the characters in a way that I
Yeah.
haven't with anything else. Final Fantasy 14 does such a good job of having these, like, peaks and valley character development moments, but then also just like the slice of life. We're just walking from here to there. We're just, kind of just the random moments in the party and stuff like that. And I found myself just really connected with the characters where I was like, these people feel like my friends.
Mhm.
Like I feel connected to them in a way that I haven't with other games, and I think that's just because of the depth and the complexity of the game. There's just so much game that it's, like,
Yeah.
impossible not to feel that way, but I think especially for me because, I didn't have all this, like, time in between expansions, I don't have memories of playing raids with people, like,
Mhm.
that literally just doesn't exist for me, so everything is, like, when I think of Final Fantasy 14, it's just me and the characters, me and the
Yeah.
MSQ, like, that's it. Um, and so, like, I just fell in love, and I couldn't stop playing until I got to the last episode, the last season.
Yeah. So do you think thinking about the characters and narrative, it sounds like you're into like creative writing and narratives and all that type of stuff. So, do you think that? I mean, for me, when I play 14 and I play through this story, like obviously ARR has its challenges and everything, but um, I think you summed it up on one of your videos. You said it's like a pilot, and I'm like, yeah, it totally is like a pilot for the setting up the rest of the story and everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wondered for me. I've thought about it a lot, and I've had some time to process this. I said it a couple months back. I said, I think it's my favorite story in any medium I've experienced, period. And I don't know, like, there's other things I love. Like, obviously, I love Game of Thrones, despite season 8 and how that wrecked and everything. Like, I'm loving House of the Dragon. I think House of the Dragon's been great so far. There's other stories that I really like, but there's something about this world that makes, like you said, those characters feel like your friends and feel real. And do you think that's just time, like the amount of time we spend with them, that 350 hours, or do you think it's the writing, the music, all the above? Like, what do you think, like, brings you into the story so much? Because I think that's what captivates so many people about this game.
That is such a good question. I mean, I think it is time, but it also doesn't feel wasted. So I'm doing New Game Plus right now. I'm on part 6 of ARR. So like right before Heaven's Ward. And I'm very curious because I have this like thesis in my head of like, can you play Final Fantasy 14 under the like with the intention of thinking that ARR is a prequel to the whole thing? Because I feel like, it is so different from the rest. I don't think it's bad. And, I was willing to play it. But anyway, sorry, I digress. I think it's just, I think there's just such a balance. At first I was worried because there's so many characters, there's so many worlds, there's so many characters, there's so many regions, and it is a big world, but nothing feels wasted. It really doesn't. Like everything really does connect. And a lot of the comments that I got on my first video where I did my 2-month review thing was that people said that because they had been playing for years, by the time like Endwalker came out or something, there would be a character that would come back from who was introduced like 2 expansions ago or whatever, but they didn't remember who they were because it had been so long since they first met them. And because I crunched it all, it just like I can say that everything was not wasted. Like everything made sense, everything connected. And I really think that like it's not just it's a good story, but there's just so much purpose and so much intention with every cutscene. And there were a few times I was like, my husband would keep walking in like, wow, you're not even playing a game, you're just watching cutscenes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what, I'm actually okay with this. Like, it's such a good story that like, like, I don't know, it was just really captivating. Like I found myself wanting to wake up and play because I wanted to know what happened next. So, I know there's well, people have told me like about the story of the writing and the writers and how they've treated every expansion and stuff like that. But, for me, it felt very like fluid. Like it didn't feel like, oh, this was a different writer or anything like that. I've heard some things of like, oh, this expansion is better received, or people don't like Stormblood or whatever. I loved it all. Like there wasn't a part where I was like, this is my least favorite. I mean, I would say like maybe there were times that were more impactful than others, but it just all was so good. I had a great time playing it.
Yeah, and I think like from that perspective of playing it in a very truncated time period too, like it I think you see all those narrative threads connect and everything.
Yeah.
And like with Endwalker being kind of like the end of the Heidelin Zodiark stuff, like there is a very clear end point to it. And I think a lot of the Stormblood, because everyone, aside from ARR, everyone kind of talks and dunks on Stormblood. And I think like for me, there's some amazing stuff in Stormblood. There's Fordola, there's Yotsuyu, that whole stuff, and like all. I love Hien, I love Gosetsu, I love Yugiri, like I love Magni and Serena, and oh my god, why am I blanking on her name? The Chaos Gremlin, one that just wants to burn everything down and laughs at Magni, Sadu.
Oh yeah,
Um, and like, I mean, I love the Namazu. Like, there's so much stuff I love. I mean, in Stormblood, and I'm partially biased because like I'm part Japanese. I was raised by my Japanese grandmother, so like that
yeah.
having all that like in there kind of appeals to me.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with Stormblood that a lot of people had was I think it wasn't a narratively fulfilling experience. Like if you were playing it like at the time and it just stops, right? Like whereas like with
Oh.
Endwalker and even with Shadowbringers, like there's a very clear like big punchy end conclusion moment, and the
Mm,
fight with Xenos and Shinryu at the top of I forget the tower, but anyway, like it's just kind of anticlimactic. It doesn't feel as big as like the battle like, at the end of Heaven's Ward or the battle at the end of
I
Shadowbringers or
see. I
Endwalker.
see.
And I think that that's the problem with it, but it does a fantastic world. I think Stormblood probably more than any other expansion does a fantastic job of kind of fleshing out the dynamics of the whole world.
Yes, totally.
Because
Yeah.
Heaven's Word, you get Ishgard, you get a lot of Ishgard, and you get to understand that. Shadowbringers, it's all the first and more about the Ascians and everything. And the Endwalker is kind of like continuation of that, but continuation of kind of the final days and everything. And yeah, Royal Menagerie. Thanks, Reaver.
Mhm.
And the I think just Stormblood just doesn't quite have that. Stormblood does a much better job at kind of telling you more about all of Eorzea and all of the different lands of Atheris. And I think that it does a great job
Yeah.
setting up that, but it's
It
not on its own a very like punchy climactic thing. I think until you probably get to the Otsuyu stuff, but that's a very personal story,
yeah.
you know?
It's funny because like, because I played it, so fast, I actually don't know like, it all blends into me.
Mhm.
Um I have a hard time distinguishing, like, where Stormblood ends and where Shadowbringer starts. Like, people will say, "Oh, 5.3 was amazing." I have no idea what you guys are referring to, because
Yeah,
obviously,
I'm
like
sorry. I'll try to pull it back into like
no, but,
story beat
like,
speak and everything. Yeah.
it's I kinda wish that was somewhere, like, on the HUD or even in the
Mm.
journal just because like, I wanna also, you know, contribute, but I just, like, I don't know what, like, arc that was. Yeah, so, like, it's funny for me, like, I guess I just don't have that feeling of it because it just like, the next thing was right there for me to pick
Mhm.
up, so, I don't know, I remember being so sad when I thought Gozetsu died, and I had to text my brother, like, "I can't play this anymore," because he was, like, my favorite character.
Yeah.
So, that was, like, the climactic part for me, but
I'm
yeah.
kind of torn on that one. So
Yeah?
so there's a part of me that wishes he would have died.
Like,
But
he just
I
died?
love him, right? Like, 'cause I love him. I don't want him to die, but there's also like this kind of like poeticness with that with how he goes out in that moment that I wish they would have stuck
Kept it,
to it,
like
you know?
right, followed through.
Mhm. Because I think then you could propel Hien forward more, having learned from that experience, having gone through that grief. And instead, I feel like they kind of just went, "Oh, Hien, like you do your thing. Like everybody loves the big Gosetsu, so let's bring him back." Like is
Yeah.
so I feel like Hien, who's supposed to be the kind of new leader of everybody, kind of takes a backseat because of Gosetsu's return. But he is a fan
Mm.
favorite, so
Yeah. That's funny.
maybe I've just watched too much House of the Dragon recently, and I'm like, everybody must die. But,
I haven't started, so I have
it's
catch
worth
I
it.
have catch
If
yeah.
I was probably one of the most skeptical people, like, after the end of Game of Thrones, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
cool.
like, I wasn't gonna watch it, and some people said, like, "Oh, just try it. Just watch a couple episodes and see if you like it." And I'm like, "Oh, I've been pleasantly surprised, and I actually really enjoy it."
Oh, that's great.
I would say Cobra Kai is probably my favorite show on TV right now, but House of the Dragon's close second, so.
Nice.
So I'd recommend it. It's worth a shot. But um so yeah, like let's I guess talk about, going through that journey in like 2 months.
Mhm.
What are the moments that stuck out to you the most? Like what are the ones that You said a lot of stuff blended together, at least in terms of terminology and
Yeah.
everything. But like, what are the moments that stuck out the most? What are the characters that stuck out the most to you, and what kept you propelling and moving forward?
That is a good question. I mean, I think the thing that really kept me in, I think, is just the sense of adventure. So like, I know it's not like a specific thing, but I just like the immersivity of the world. I was just like, man. And I remember my brother telling me, like, you could take a break from the MSQ and do all the other things that Final Fantasy 14 has to offer. And I tried doing some of that, but like, I don't know, just even going through all the maps, I was like, this is so cool. Like the world feels so big. It kind of reminded me of like when, early days of World of Warcraft, exploring with the whole like
Mm.
open world thing, and you just see random other players like walking through the map with you. And it's like, wow, it's just, maybe because it's just been like 15 years or whatever since the last time I played a game this big, that I was just so caught up in that. It like almost felt so, it was like such a contrast of when I would turn the PlayStation off or log off and like be here in the real world where everything is like it's like our house.
Mhm.
And then I would log in and it was just this huge world. And like I remember thinking, like, with every map there's all these different looking enemies that, like, I'm like, how are there that many different designs of enemies and like, even the maps and it's just everything. It's just like, this is so crazy how nothing feels repetitive. Like everything
Mm.
feels unique. Um, and I really did feel like I was exploring like new cultures. It was just like, taking a trip around the world. It really felt like that.
Mm.
And then having the best adventure buddies ever with, the scions and everything. Let's see, big things that stuck out to me. Um, it's hard because I have like all my video ideas in my head versus like what actually stuck out to me.
I don't want you to spoil all your video ideas here, but I mean, if you feel
Yeah.
like sharing, let's go for it.
Well, the one that I'm working on right now is a video about Alphino. So
Mm.
I felt, oh man, like the first time where I kind of felt uh like gut punched was Alphino's whole thing with the Crystal Braves. Just because,
Yeah.
like, it's like the writings on the wall. He's so naive. He just doesn't see like, oh man, this isn't going to end well. But you're a fresh graduate with no experience in the real world, and you're like going around
Mhm.
trying to recruit people for this noble cause. That's like, oh yeah, it just reminds me with like when I had my first job. You don't understand that people have ulterior motives. So like, yeah,
Mhm.
they'll tell you one thing, they totally agree with you, and then like, oh, there's this whole dynamic that like you just have no idea about, right? And even if you have the best intentions and you can feel like, why wouldn't people agree with you? And then it just all goes to ish, and
Yeah.
and then it really like I'll never forget that scene where Tataru, Alphino, and you are just walking like up to Ishgard, just feeling
Mhm.
so defeated. And I felt so bad. I think there's a scene where he's just like in a chair, like head in his hand, just like, oh my god, I totally messed up.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. It was such a real world thing in a fantasy world that I like, that really connected with me. So that's gonna be like one of my upcoming videos. Um,
Yeah, I
let's
kind of wish I could
see.
shut my brain off and experience all this again from new eyes, because at the time when I was going through that, I
Yeah.
hated Alphino.
Oh
I
yeah.
hated him with like a passion, because he was that like headstrong kid who just, was like, "Oh, I know what to do." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, you don't."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and I just felt like, "I told you so. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like the whole time I felt like just like screaming at him. And like, of all the characters that they've rehabilitated him, they've rehabilitated Thancred, they've rehabilitated a number of different characters. I feel like he has the biggest like rehabilitation. Maybe
Yeah.
next to Emmett Selk. I would say more so than Emmett Selk, because his
It's
journey's more
quite the
complete.
arc.
Yeah.
Like and it really made me appreciate like the stuff, Shadowbringers and Endwalker, just knowing the rock bottom, like him feeling like he was at the top, but knowing he was just about to crash or burn, and then he does, and then like just seeing him grow from that was really an arc. Well, I mean, they all stick out to me, but that one was like, it reminded me so much of like what a lot of people go through when they're, you go through your careers. I feel like everyone has that reality check moment of like, oh, there's people in the world who don't think like I do.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with that,
Yeah, I think we've all had our own ill-birds in our career at some point or another who just like
totally.
decided to sabotage us and for their own interests and everything. And
Totally.
yeah, that one, what's funny is I never thought about it like that. And now as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I know exactly who my ill-bird is.
Heck yeah. Like we
someone who
can
tried to
all
get me
picture that.
fired.
Right.
And I was like, I was 23 and someone tried to get me fired saying I didn't do a bunch of stuff. And like, thankfully I didn't delete any emails. And I was like, you mean like these things that you thanked me for?
Yeah.
And I, I don't begrudge that person anymore or anything. Like I know why they did it. It's because like they were desperate and like they had to keep this job and they had kids to take care of and everything. And it was during the 2007-8 recession. And like, I get it. Like, not a cool thing to do to a 23-year-old, but at the same time, like, it's understandable. Same thing with like Ilbert. It's like you get why Ilbert is as crazed and passionate about saving his motherland as he possibly can be, but at the same time, it's like that still doesn't make it the right decision.
I think that's another thing I really like about Final Fantasy 14 is that in A Realm Reborn, it feels very superficial, right? Just like, okay, there's Gaius is just pissed at whatever, and it's the Empire, and I was like, whatever. It's a typical Crystal story. Whatever.
It's very much the generic Final Fantasy, like 4 crystals of the elements.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I get it.
Ultimate weapon. Yeah.
Yeah, but then like as you go through, I just found a lot. I found a lot of that. I found a lot of like, I can actually understand the motivation behind the Asians and like what the heck they're trying to do, and behind, Ilbert, and just I felt like everyone had a cause they were fighting for, and there were a lot of times where it's like, dang, I know we're the good guys, but seriously, it's just a matter of where we're standing. Because if you stand one step across the line, like we could very easily be the bad guys, and I just really like that. I
and Emmett Selk says as much to us
Yeah.
in Shadowbringers. I mean, even though I think he's like fully gone and demented at that point,
Yeah.
and isn't seeing reason or being a megalomaniacal madman, I think, as he
Right.
says. But you kind of get it, right? Like you kind of get why he feels the way that he does. And he's like, wouldn't you save your people? Like, aren't you doing the same thing right now that I'm doing? And, I think that ability to tell a story like that is so difficult, but to stick the landing and to get all those beats to hit right emotionally. And I think they just do a tremendous job at it.
Especially in a job in a fantasy or in a game in a fantasy world, it's like it's like you have to make the world immersive enough where it's escapism and entertainment.
Yeah.
But it also has to be relatable. And I just really think that there's something about Final Fantasy 14. I mean, I can confidently say it's the best one. It's the best time I've had playing a Final Fantasy game, at the very least. I wish I could tell everybody, it's one of my favorite games ever, but I also don't want to like, hype it up or anything, just because I think it's good. It would be a pleasant surprise. I think if someone hadn't tried it, it's just, you're in for a super wild ride.
That's like for an evangelist, like your brother, right? That's probably like our difficult sales proposition. Don't tell everyone it's the greatest story and game of all time, but then like also convince them to play it. That's a tough sell, I think.
Yeah, but, and then tell them that A Realm Reborn is going to be,
Yeah.
They have like a lot to get through before it gets going. Yeah.
But so Alfie obviously has, a big arc, and hitting on a couple comments here. So Reaver says Alfie is the prime example of the slow burn paying serious dividends. I agree.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you look at it in terms of actual real world years, like that payoff of Alphino's growth, I mean, it starts in Heaven's Word. I don't think it completes there. But I mean, to get to that point in Endwalker 10 years later or whatever,
Yeah.
whereas dad's like finally admitting that my kids outgrew me and I was wrong and everything like
It's
that.
so good. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh my God. I just feel so like proud. I'm like, dang, man. Oh, so good.
Mhm.
And like him and Justinian. Oh, it's just so good.
And Bo here says, Alfie had a pass for me because his grandfather during the 1.0 days. See, people talk about Louis Soir in the game all
So
the
he was
time.
in 1.0?
Yeah, I believe so. He was one of the
Okay.
characters in 1.0. So I never played 1.0. From what I
Yeah.
understand, he was, like one of the scions in 1.0, and he was there. And that's why you see that big in that first introductory cutscene, like him, saving the world and like turning into
Yeah.
Phoenix and everything. Yeah, Louis Soir is like, I don't know, kind of like the Gandalf of this whole universe, right?
Right.
He's like, you shall not pass, and saves everyone, and he's like kind of the reason that we are here. And yet I think Koji Fox talked about it in one of the No Clip documentary. Actually, he talked about it. He's like, we have this like creation myth in our world, like and he's like, even in our company, while we're trying to make the game and everything, like we talk about this magical thing of the 1.0 days and the failure of that and having to learn from that. But then we also have our like creation myth, and it's weird. It's kind of like the prologue to Lord of the Rings in a way. And Louis Suarez, like this doesn't make sense with the Gandalf reference, but like he's kind of like the guy that bridges the gap between the two. So
Right.
let's
Grandpa
see here.
Lou. That's funny.
Grandpa. I've never heard Grandpa Lou either. Nano says 14 does a great job of letting you understand the villains without agreeing with them. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
And I mean, I've said this before, but like, I think a lot of that, and this is just my interpretation of it. I think anime and Japanese writing does that like better than like way better than Western like media and stuff, except for, maybe stuff like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and stuff. Because I feel like so much in Western writing and storytelling is like bad guy, good guy, like
Yeah.
all holy, all evil, like, and it's just, like, and I talk about this a lot because, my grandmother survived an atomic bomb. Like she was very close to it when she was growing up. She was 2 years old.
Dang.
And like she emigrated here. I met my grandfather in the service and emigrated here and everything. And I always think about that, like, because my great grandfather was from Sicily, so he was Italian, and my last name is German. And like I'm basically a product of all the Axis countries of World War II in some strange way. And
That's crazy.
but I think about it a lot because I think about, the like what would it be like to not be, portrayed as the good guys all the time?
Right.
Like America is kind of, for some reason, like always portrayed as, the the beacon of freedom. Like we're always the good guys and everything. And the interesting thing about it is I think that like having gone through that experience, like look at Japan. They went from being, part of the axis of evil in 1945 to literally becoming one of the most beloved cultures around the world in about 30 years.
It's crazy.
And I mean, from a marketing perspective, that's one hell of a rebrand. But from a psychology perspective, I think it's fascinating because I think that bleeds into the writing, right? Because they've gone through that kind of transformation as a people where they were, at least on the world stage, viewed as the aggressors and the bad guys and everything. And they did do some bad things, obviously with invading China and everything else. But they also had a horrific thing done to them with an atomic bomb being dropped on them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that like bleeds into their writing, and that's why they're so good at writing complex characters and complex villains, because they recognize as a country that like you're not always the good guy. And so they have that level of understanding, whereas like I think Americans a lot of times have this superiority complex, like we're always good, we always do the right things, and it's like, do we really? And
Yeah,
I think that
totally.
perpetuates in our media and storytelling too. Not to
Yeah,
get too
I mean,
political there.
no, but I mean, it's such an interesting because I actually I don't know why this happened, but I was never into anime until a couple years ago.
Mhm.
I think it was Your Name was the very first.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like the first like anime thing, and then I just caught up on everything.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Now I understand how you binged Final Fantasy 14 in like 2 months
yes, I'm
because
a
you've been
binger.
catching up on anime. Oh my goodness. Like
So
that's
like
that's a
it's a
challenge.
really I really do think that I have like an interesting like my life was set up to have a very interesting experience of Final Fantasy 14 just because like it was just like perfectly timed with I really don't think I would have appreciated it as much if not for like all the binging I've done the past couple years with anime. But yeah, like I have that thought too. There are a lot of things that tropes that annoy the heck out of me out of anime, but
Mhm.
there are also it's like there was a time where I could not watch live action anything anymore.
Mhm.
Like it all had to be anime because I was just so I don't know convinced that like I just couldn't watch anything that was live action anymore. I don't even know I don't know why. I think
There's a
actually
fluidity to the
Expanse.
art style and everything, I think you know, is very different visually and it's much more artistic, I think, in terms of a creative medium. Though, as someone who
Yeah.
loves cameras and and all that, like I'm very much into like watching how like cinematography's. I try to put myself like how'd they get this shot? How do they execute that thing? So I think about those things, but there's something about like just some person like I know we don't put pen to paper anymore or anything like that, but like some person drawing something that I think is just very unique.
Well, I also think like I really think that there were stories being told that you just like can't tell unless it's animated, which,
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of anime
Yeah.
tries to go live action, but
Yeah.
like I really feel like
That Death Note live action movie like
I
broke
never
my
saw
heart.
it. Oh,
Uh
really?
yeah,
I can only imagine.
if you've watched the anime, don't and there's weird parts of the anime, don't get me wrong, but like
Yes.
don't watch that thing. I mean, and I love the director of that movie. He's made some of my favorite like horror movies, but yeah, that's one of those ones. It's like, holy cow, that did not translate well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think The Expanse was
Mm,
probably the show that brought me back to live action,
mhm.
because it's so good. If you haven't checked it out, it's like Game of Thrones in space. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I got really into slice of life. It's
Mm,
like I feel like we don't have that in Western media because it has to be a sitcom. It has to be like a rom-com, and I don't know, there's just something about like there is plot development, but it's also very relatable and very like, of course there's like, anime where everyone's, there's aliens and killing people and all this, but
mhm.
it's cool how there is an anime for anybody. Like it's all ages, all,
Yeah.
it's not just like a cartoon kid thing. I didn't realize that. And then when I discovered the genre, I was like, where the heck has this been the whole time? It's just been here the whole time. Um, yeah, so anyway, and then I found Final Fantasy 14 and I think it was just like the perfect setup this whole time to
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, you know everything you like about anime. It's that and like also everything you like about video games in one.
Yeah.
What? So
I'm
cool.
I'm so, like I'm very narrative driven when it comes to games. And that's something that like
Yeah,
all
same
my
here.
friends that always tell me is, because we've all played MMOs together, like with WoW, like I was so invested in that world and that story, more so than even like the game systems. Like I just wanted to continue the story. And I always jokingly call like WoW like Michael Bay, because like you get like a bunch of explosions and maybe like this much story every like 6 months.
Yeah.
And 14 is very much like you were saying earlier, it's like a visual novel in a way.
Yeah, it really is.
Where
I mean,
you're
that's how it
kind of
felt to
reading through
me.
all the stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that I think has a really, really positive impact on the story. The one pet peeve I will say while we close out the anime discussion, because I feel like I could talk about anime all night, but the one pet peeve that drives me insane in anime, at least in dubs, compared to like JRPGs, like Final Fantasy 14 where you have to read a lot, or Persona 5 where you have to read a lot. That's a great game, by the way, if you haven't played that one yet.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Okay,
like
great.
life-changing. Life-changing.
12 out of 10, highly recommend.
So good.
But the thing that drives me nuts, I was trying to watch Demon Slayer for the first time. And like, I really liked the world and aesthetic and everything. I was playing that fighting game, and that's what kind of got me into it. I was like, maybe I'll check out this anime. And my God, they have this propensity to describe everything that they're seeing like verbatim. And I'm like, show don't tell is like what I like screaming at the TV all the time. And I get it. That's the way like the Japanese language works. And like you have to be very expressive and everything. But there are so many times where I'm just like, please stop describing the things that I'm seeing. Like, just let me see them. And if you need to say something, tell me how you're feeling, like that's the stuff I want. And yes, that happens in the writing in like Persona 5 and in 14 and everything, but it's not as intrusive to me. And so like it flows, I think, a lot better. Let's see here, catching up. So I missed a comment earlier about Ishikawa and Oda, but shout outs to both of them because they do such a great job at, like you said, not wasting any bit of the story whatsoever and connecting everything so well so that some random thing that happens in ARR doesn't go wasted ever.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. It's just, man, it's such an experience. Like, I really wish more people would play it just because it's such a good story.
Yeah. And let's see here. Reaver also says, real life got too boring for you. That's why anime like finally took over and everything. Let's see here. Nano says, to go full armchair psych, anime uses more realistic anatomy combined with simplified faces that are easy to empathize with and project onto.
Wow. There you go.
That's interesting. Yeah, I can kind of see that because I think there's some, if a show has weak acting and you can't read the faces or the faces are too overly dramatized that, from the actor and or portrayal. I don't know. That's an interesting take. So yeah. So let's talk about other characters like that you got into and everything. Like Alphino is one of them, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. He's like my in-game, like in headcanon, like best friend of my character now. Like went from like frenemy to best friend, in game in terms of my headcanon. But what are the other characters that stood out? Like what are the villains? I guess let's talk villains. Like what are the villains that stood out to you? Which one's your favorite? Which one had the biggest impact on you? Which one do you spend the most time thinking about?
So I wasn't convinced with Nidhogg, honestly, because I get it. But I also was like, I think I was just still so skeptical at that point in my journey of playing Final Fantasy 14 that I was like, man, like I find it hard to believe that we would not try to find a way to get on the same side. Like we're still, it's just still so divided. And I get why, but I just was like, dragons versus humans. Like, I just feel like if there were any opportunity for us to be on the same planet with dragons, we would worship them. Like, why is it? How did it come to this? And again, I get why. So actually,
I would go the opposite route. I think we try to kill every single one of them and be like, they're too big of a threat. Like we have to be apex predator. Every one of them's got to go. Is how I would think about it.
So
I mean, if they were all peace loving and everything, and like one never attacked a human or anything like that, I feel like okay, like we could live in harmony. But the instant one of them goes rogue and eats a human, I feel like we'd just be like, arm up, everybody. They all must go.
They're all a threat. I'm gonna do a spoiler where I'm specifically gonna tell my brother to get out of here because he hasn't played Endwalker yet. So get out of here right now. But yeah, so Xenos also like annoyed me. I was like, dude, this guy is just so obsessed with like one thing that I can't like I felt like he would interrupt the story. Like there's such a bigger picture and he was just like, "Yeah, I just want to kill you." I'm like, "Dude." Like it was almost jarring,
Mm.
of like the back and forth between like just I don't know, there's so many people trying to organize for their side and he was just like literally going rogue because he's so focused on trying to get a kick out of fighting us, which was I don't know. I saw some things online that people were saying it's supposed to be some kind of metaphor of like breaking the fourth wall and they're actually talking to you. I don't know if that's just like, if that's actually what happened. I'm
I've
excited to
heard
play
that
it
too.
again. Yeah, which actually that makes sense to me because I'm like, okay, I can see how if you're talking to me like Heather the player, that's yeah, I'm just sitting on my couch trying to, you know, do escapism and like, be entertained by this thing that nothing phases me and I'm looking for a real challenge and stuff. Like all of those, I felt like all the things that would motivate him into like trying to, battle our Warrior of Light make sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just was really jarring for him to just it's like it's all you just keep coming back like I want to kill you. I'm like, okay, dude. um
Yeah. To me, he's the definition of like depression and nihilism. Like
yeah.
I think he's those two things, like he's not fulfilled by anything and he's just like he's like
Yeah.
an addict. He's just looking for that
Right.
next hit.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
and like when Alizé like yells at him, right? Like and kind of like temporarily snaps him out of it. And she's like, you got to give something back to the people you consider your like. She doesn't say that exactly, but she
Right.
insinuates, and he learns like, oh, I have to like do something nice for my friends so that they'll fight me to the death.
Right.
And I don't know, like Stout Helm. I don't know if you've watched any of his videos or not, but he does like
Mm-mm.
fantastic lore takes and videos and
Oh.
everything. And shout out to Stout Helm, by the way. He just cracked 10,000 subscribers, so I'm
Oh,
so happy for
nice.
him. And he and I were talking on the show about this, and like he is the ultimate Xenos fanboy. Like
Oh,
he
really?
loves. I don't want to say he's a fanboy, but like he loves Xenos. And I think he said to me like, I will fight anyone to the death and explain to them why they're wrong about their negative take on Xenos. And I think he's got a lot of interesting takes, but at the same time, I think Xenos, you put him in any other medium, you put him in a Final Fantasy VII, like he's not Sephiroth, but he's like kind of like in that same vein. Like, what do we really remember about Sephiroth? For those of us, I don't know.
Right.
Did you play 7 back in the day?
Yeah.
So like when I was 12 or 13
Yeah,
playing 7,
13. Yeah.
like the only thing I remember about Sephiroth is the one big act that he does where he takes out a party member and
Right.
and in that, like I'm like, I gotta kill this guy. Like that's all.
Yeah.
The stuff
Right.
about Genova and like all the
And
cloning
the
and all
rest
the
of
other
it,
stuff,
yeah.
like you almost forget about it because you're just like, he's just a giant, cool looking evil target to attack. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's Xenos in a way.
Right. Right.
He's kind of that classic Final Fantasy villain in a he's not Kefka, he's Sephiroth.
Yeah.
And he is kind of Kefka in a way. Like Kefka's a clown that's just hell bent
Yeah.
on causing he's like the Joker. So I guess Xenos is
Right.
kind of like that, or as Reaver says, he's combat sexual is the term that everyone uses in terms of describing Xenos. But and Reaver says he says he's definitely talking to you, the player.
Yeah.
Like when he
I
says
got
like,
that
are you
impression.
fulfilled? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's when I was like, okay, like if there's one thing I could change, I kind of wish he would look at the camera, like just break the
mhm.
fourth wall then.
Hmm.
Cuz that is cool. I love that take. Like when I heard of that, I was like, "Oh man, that like that changes everything." Now I got to play it all again and be like, "Okay, he's talking to me. He's talking to me."
Mhm.
Like he realizes there's like a I don't know, another side to the Warrior of Light. and that's us, right? And
Mhm.
like now going through it with that interpretation's, really interesting. I think that's like super unique, for the fourth wall to be broken in video games. Like I've never had that before. Um
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think of who else. We're to talk about bad guys. Let's see.
Or we
Um
can go back and talk about scions too.
yeah. I mean,
It's interesting. The I will say it's interesting that you said about Nidhogg. Like Nidhogg didn't fully resonate with you, and I feel like you're right because Nidhogg is very much like monster that is there to burn everybody because he's been wronged. Like he's so
yeah,
angry. Like he is.
nothing
He's
wrong with that, but it felt, it felt like, especially when you compare it to the complexity of the characters
Mhm.
later on, it did feel kind of just like, okay, you're the big threat. It's just
Yeah.
us versus them kind of a thing. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it just resonate like Nidhogg just resonates so well with me because it's part of this like Nidhogg is like maybe as a character as himself, he's not terribly interesting other than the fact that I think he's a lesson or a exemplar of what can happen when someone pushes people too far and they break.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
so much bad stuff has happened to them that they're just
They
done
just
and they
yeah.
turn into a rage monster, like.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the parable of Nidhogg, right? And
Right.
so the story's not really effectively so much about him as he is a vehicle for telling this, I would say, greater anti-war story in a way.
Yeah.
Because, like he was created because of you know, the war, the
Yeah.
Ishgardian and Dravanian war. And so I can see that. And I will say now I think Xenos is actually more complex than Nidhogg, and I didn't think that before, so he
Oh,
convinced
that's
me of something
funny.
else. Um, so
Well, see,
all
that's
right,
why it's
so
fun talking about this with other
yeah,
people. It's
yeah,
like, what's your take?
yeah. So what about
um,
other scions or villains or whatever you want to talk story wise?
let's see who else. I would probably say the one I had the most. It's hard to say the most because I love all of them, but the Crystal Exarch.
Hmm.
Yeah, we go on a journey. That was actually like the moment. Again, this is spoilers, but that was the moment that actually broke me in Endwalker. Like it wasn't even the walk. It was the it was Graha.
Like which part with Graha was it the part where he shows up like and you're challenging Xenos and he helps you summon the other warriors of light, or is
That
it the
was
moment?
dope, but
Yeah,
no.
is it the moment when like you've taken care of, or not, I said Xenos, Emmett Selk. When you take care of Emmett Selk and like Graha shows up behind you and you call him Graha or you say the thing that you said to him like a long time ago and he starts
Yeah,
tearing up. Okay.
no.
No, it's
That
not that
wasn't
moment
it.
either. Oh,
No.
okay.
Don't see, so there were a lot of moments where I was like, God, it's like it's so good, but it was when he turns into like the bridge,
Turns into the bridge.
like right before the walk, like the crystal, he turns into crystal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So during 5.3 when you're fighting Elidibus, after you fight Elidibus.
No, it's like right before the walk.
Which walk am I thinking of?
Like the walk. The walk. Like,
Why am I completely blanking
wait,
on
because
this?
you've played through like everything, right? Like you're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
caught up. Okay,
I
cool.
think
'Cause
so.
I,
Yeah.
I I just the only thing I haven't done is
Is there a
6.2.
Crystal Tower?
No, it's like so you know how like you're on Ultimate Duel and then like
Oh God. Okay. You said
yeah, like
Endwalker. My brain went to Shadowbringers, and
oh
that's
yeah.
my fault. Everyone in the chat's probably like, "You are an idiot." Like the walk. Yes, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it just killed me.
Hmm.
I had to put the controller down. I couldn't, I can't. I'm so excited to make my video about that because that
Yeah.
it was like because I didn't know what I was in for. because Thancred just disappeared when we landed on the ship, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, whatever. And then everyone like like that.
Your husband's making fun of me at this point. He's like the end walk at the end of Endwalker.
Oh my gosh, Tom, I have to tell you, Popo like is a fan. He totally is a sub, and I can't wait to tell you more. But anyway, yeah. So, the like everyone was kind of one by one disappearing, but there was just something about like Graha specifically making a crystal bridge that just broke me, because he's already half crystal. Like the guy has lived his whole life like being half crystal, and then just to go full on for you to continue is just like, I couldn't.
Yeah, I think I made a video a while back, and I need to refresh it because I'm working on some like top 5 videos and stuff.
Yeah.
But I made a video a while back that's like most tear jerking moments through Shadowbringers, and the one that kills me, of course, like all the stuff at the end of the end walk at the end of Endwalker, of course, kills me. I think Alizé and Alphino got me more, because I'm so like I feel like Alizé and Alphino are like best friends, but also kind of like my kids in a way. Like I have to keep them safe, and like to see your kids like have to like sacrifice themselves for you is like the worst thing you could possibly think of. But no, the number one for me, and I think it's because of my real life profession and education and everything, is like when you say goodbye to the first at the end after you beat Elidibus, and you're leaving the first, and you're leaving Reen behind, and you're
that
leaving
killed me.
And you're leaving all the people of the first behind and everything. And like with all the stuff with like Thancred, like the dad-daughter stuff with Thancred and Reen, to
the whole time I was just playing with dread, because I was like, like no one's talking about the elephant in the room, that we have to leave, and like she's gonna stay here, and all her friends, like all her family, are just gonna leave her. Like, oh, it's just so horrible. It just reminded me of all those times.
It felt like graduation for me. Like every year, it's like I know, there's that quote, and I know people have feelings about The Last Jedi, but there's that quote from Yoda where he's like, "They are what we grow beyond," and I love that line, because I feel it every single year where I'm like, I know you're gonna go off and do great things, and I know you're probably gonna forget about me at some point, but like I hope that this journey and everything, like I know you're gonna be better than me, is what I hope for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think like I was uncontrollably sobbing at that scene, especially with the stuff with oh goodness, I'm having old man moments here, but Graha's like pseudo daughter, Lena, yeah.
That killed
like
me
that
too.
whole speech, I used that in a graduation thing, by the way. Like I totally repurposed part of it and was like, this is so good, I'm just gonna take some of this here and rechange up some words here and there and use that, and it's perfect.
Oh, that's funny.
So but my students know me, like they know that they're always gonna get some weird pop culture reference in every one of my speeches, so
that's great.
But yeah, that moment just wrecked me.
Yeah, so. I really, I'm in a funny, I don't know. I guess I feel funny about Final Fantasy 14 because Endwalker felt like such an ending. I think that's why I don't want to play 6.2. Like I'm almost, I don't know anything about it. Like I don't know anything about it.
I kind of felt that way about 6.1 too. Is I was like, do I really want to start a new adventure? Like I want to be with the people that I've been with, but I can tell you, I played through 6.1 and 6.2. I can tell you, it's setting up, and it already is in kind of the midst of another great adventure with some of the characters that you love, and they introduce in 6.2 a new character that I feel like 14 does this better than any game. Like when Reen shows up and you're like, I don't know if I like this character.
Yeah.
And,
I always feel that way. With
and now I'm like, Reen, like I said, Alphino and Alizé are like my kids. Reen is like I feel like Thancred. It's like I was like, I don't want to leave this kid behind. Like, I want her to be with us. Like, I know she's got a destiny and everything else, but like, there's a new character, and I don't know why I keep, saying like, oh, I don't want to meet new characters. I just want to be with the Scions I've always been with. And every time without fail, 14's like, oh yeah, like we'll see about that. Here's a new character, and then you like kind of instantly fall in love with them too. So there's some good stuff to look forward to in 6.2 for you.
I'm excited. I'm glad. There's also a part of me that like loves having the thing in the top left corner. Like it just felt so empty when I finished. I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. I like don't know what to do. Yeah, I was like, oh my god, I'm just gonna take it off. It just makes me feel sad. And now it's nice because it just says like in search of I forgot what the dragon's name was, but yeah, so it's like I'm in that like, limbo of like I loved this like wonderfully tied up arc that like I'm excited to be on the journey, but I hate having to wait. Like I hate this like and I got nervous because I found out that Yoshi P was working on Final Fantasy 16, and I was like, does that mean like it's over? Does that mean he's leaving? Like, does that mean we're not going to get what we've been getting? And like, I was like, okay, I gotta, I gotta be thankful for the adventure that I had, and maybe that's as good as it's gonna get and stuff. So I don't. It's just funny being on this side of it, of like, I have to get it in pieces. Like everybody else,
Yeah, I will say, for me, it's kind of a freeing thing in a way as a person who's an MSQ like predominant person. I actually do love crystalline conflict. I do PvP quite a bit. Like I'm working on my way back up to crystal rank again for season 2, and so I do love that aspect of the game. I like just casually running the dungeons and raids and everything, like just because I enjoy doing the fights. I tried Savage and Extreme. Like, I don't think it's for me. Like, I think those days, like, I think once you hit your late 30s, you're just kind of like, I think I'm done with like the hardcore raiding scene, because I did it
no interest.
I did it for so long in WoW, and I think I'm just kind of over that part of it. But for me, like 14 is so nice because like there's so many other like side things I can do in the time period in there, and having played games that are very much intentionally designed to make you have to play every single day to kind of keep up. I think it's really nice to be able to take a step back and be like, okay, I don't have to play this game every single day. Like I can just come back. Like if I want to take 3 months off, I can, and I'll just come back when the next patch comes and just play through that if I want to. And I think for me, there's a lot of little things I enjoy doing in the game. But that flexibility and that ability to have that freedom is really nice. But I'm with you. I was scared Yoshi P was like done with 14 because he closed out his arc, and I was like, please God, no. Like
I was like 10 years. Like I feel like, that's kind of a long time to be working on the same thing. Like
but if you've done the Rising event last year more so than this year, because last year was when like all that stuff was getting announced and everything. Like he made it very clear, like, if you don't know about the Rising event, like it's like basically an anniversary celebration thing. Our last one just went through.
Yes, I did get the minion.
Okay. But it's basically like a nice little message from Yoshi P every single year, like talking to you, the player, directly. And like the last year he said like, this is going to be a part of my life for the foreseeable future, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And I was like, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Yoshi P, if Louis Suave is the Gandalf of the Final Fantasy 14 story, I feel like Yoshi P is the Gandalf of the real world. Like, you shall not pass, corporation. You like, we will deliver good value to the customer and an awesome story and everything else. So
totally. So I think like this is a huge reason why I started the channel, just because like I just love thinking about it. I love thinking about the story and the characters and like talking about it, that it does give me something to do kind of in the meantime. And then, it's just been it's just so cool. I've only streamed like 3 times, but the 3 times that I've streamed, like people have been able to meet up in game with me like while I'm live. It's so cool that that's even possible. And I know like, Heather, why don't you just download Discord and be able to play with everyone in real time? It's like, it's funny that all these things are free. Like, I can't believe this is all free. We could just do that. Like, we had to, like GoldenEye back today, we had to play on the same TV and everyone could just see where everyone respawned. And
heck, wasn't
like,
Halo 1 like that too? Like, so even
yeah.
more recently than GoldenEye. But yeah, I've got plenty of fond memories of couch co-op days and everything, and it's weird. So let's talk about that just really quickly from a solo player's
Oh, that's right.
perspective. You're very much like into the whole like solo scene and everything. Like, have you changed your mind on that? Like, going from someone who maybe had some anxiety with playing with other players. And by the way, like, the 14 community is not like the WoW community or like the Apex Legends or Fortnite or Overwatch or whatever, X game like community, where if you don't know what League of Legends, like if you don't know what you're doing, like you're going to get flamed right away. I feel like, 99% of the people playing this game like want to foster a good environment and help you out as a sprout and everything. So I don't think new players should be fearful of that. But have you found yourself like, after playing predominantly solo and through the MSQ with like the trust people and everything, have you found yourself like gravitating more to the social side of things, or do you think you're going to continue kind of doing this as a solo player experience?
Both. So, I got, when I finished the MSQ, I did all of Shadowbringers and Endwalker pretty much solo. Because even the trials like were with trust, which is crazy. I couldn't believe that was also with the Scions. But when I finished everything, I was like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do the duty roulette and get all the, all the rewards and stuff. And so, going from I'm only playing with other people like once every other day to multiple times a day, like, I kind of got over that anxiety and that fear. But also it also did get to the point where it felt very repetitive, because it was just playing the same raid over and over and over and over again. And there was no story. There was no, because obviously I was caught up. So there's no like story progression. It was just kind of like, okay, here's the boss, here's the mechanic, here's the boss, here's the mechanic. And like, I didn't like that. So I stopped. But then, every time I go live, man, the last time I went live, all we did was hang out on the beach and just like checked out each other's mounts and minions and glams and like, I don't know. It was just like, I'm just fascinated that this is possible, that I can connect in this digital world with people who live around the world in real time. Like, this is just so cool to me. That aspect I absolutely love. And I don't think I can ever, ever get enough of that. So to try to figure out how to creatively leverage that, like I've been brainstorming different live stream ideas of like, maybe I can, I don't know, coordinate some kind of contest or trivia game show where, people can interact in real time and stuff, just to keep things exciting. I like that aspect of it. But, and the raids are crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, they're like the bosses are totally just so insane. Like,
to me, I describe the raid bosses because it does an excellent job of teaching you the mechanics in game without you, like that was something I was watching on one of your videos where you're like, I felt like I needed to watch all these raid guides and do all this stuff because like I didn't want to let everybody down. And now, like, I felt that way too, right? I was like, I gotta watch Ms. Tech's videos on all this stuff and like get caught up so like I don't mess anything up. But now, like, I went through the last raid. I mean, it's normal version, but like I learned everything visually, and it does such a good job at teaching you. compared to World of Warcraft, where you have like 20 add-ons to tell you like what to do at any moment, because nothing really Barbaricia is incredible. It's an awesome fight. But the where you have to have a bunch of add-ons to tell you what to do. I always describe like Final Fantasy bosses like really advanced Mario bosses. Like, you remember that like feeling of just playing through a fight in like Super Mario 64 or Mario Odyssey, and like they're kind of simplified because it is kind of meant for more ages and everything, and it's just one-on-one. But like just visually learning like running around that boss in circles and just trying to figure out
And
like,
you just
what are
figure
you
it
going to
out,
do
right.
next? Yeah.
Mhm.
That's how I
Yeah.
feel when I play like the raid bosses in this game. That's why I love them so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely edge of my seat. Like, I'm sweating when I'm playing a raid. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is very high intensity. And that's, like, I don't know if it's just the type of games I play, but I don't get that with any other of the games that I play. So it's super fun. And I think it's just like a time and a place. It's like when I want to do it, it's there, and I'm glad it is. But probably, if I had to pick, I'm totally cool with rolling solo. Like, it's just like, because I'm usually playing at 5, 6 in the morning when I'm drinking coffee, like, or Tom has his setup right next to mine. He's playing Flight Simulator, and we're listening to an audiobook. So like, I'm like on my island just grinding, and I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like half paying attention kind of thing. So
yeah, I feel like the moment for me, like, with it, that really clicked with the community aspect of things, aside from like the traditionally team-based gameplay elements like crystalline conflict and like the PvP and all that type of stuff. But like the thing for me that really had a big impact on me was I decided one day, like, I saw a posting for like DJ playing, it was DJ Limit Break. Shout out to DJ Limit Break. Like DJ Limit Break was playing a like a house show, and I was like, how the heck does this work? Like, I'm gonna go visit this person's house and go to this and then I realized, oh, like they're actually DJing on Twitch, and like, but there's also a party where people are like hanging out in game and everything.
So I haven't done this yet. Like,
And-
I've seen the like chats about it, like come to the club or whatever. I haven't actually gone, but like it sounds fascinating.
It's it loses some of its luster over time, like after the first time, so memorable. Like, but that moment where I was just like, oh my God, there are people hanging out and just having fun and like, doing stupid stuff with their emotes and everything else. Like, I was like, there's a real
cool.
DJ on Twitch, and like, I was like, this is so creative and so cool. Like, this stuff, I was like, this stuff never happens in WoW. Like, and that just kind of social like you said before, slice of life element to the gameplay and everything is just, I think this game does it so well. And
I feel like this is what like they're trying to do with the metaverse.
Yeah.
And just it's not working. I'm like, why don't you
what happens when anytime a corporation tries to push something like incredibly heavy on people and make it a thing before it's organically a thing? Like, Overwatch League. And I like Overwatch, right? But like, they went ahead and they're like, all right, NFL owner, invest $3 billion in this thing, and we know it'll be successful. And it's like, like the most successful like tournaments and everything in the gaming space are almost all like they started organically. Sure, they might have
based,
they might have gained sponsors and everything, along the way, and maybe corporation took over at some point in time, but like no one ever tried to like force community engagement without it organically happening in a healthy, sustainable way. I don't think so. So let's see here. Zaire has a question for us. Yes. How do you guys feel when you finally lost your Sprout? So this is much more recent for you.
I was so sad. I was so heartbroken. Like, I literally, the first thing I did when it was gone, I logged out because I thought like it was like a glitch. And I logged back in, it still wasn't there. And I was like, oh crap. I think I just graduated. And I don't know what the requirement is for it to, disappear. So I remember Googling like, oh my gosh, did I just cross the line? Like, did I hit the gameplay hour requirement or whatever it is? And
Mhm.
I don't know, I guess I did, and I was so sad. I wish there were a way that, like, I know people would totally abuse that, but I really wish there was a way that I can, like, optionally turn it back on.
So I don't remember the moment I lost my Sprout, because it's been so long.
Yeah.
But I do remember the moment kind of when I lost my returner badge. So like there's a badge for people who haven't played in a while and return.
Yeah.
And I I don't think I had the same level of emotional attachment where I was like, oh, like I'm a person in this world. Like I almost felt like I graduated, right?
Yeah.
Like like I'm no longer a student. I've got to get a job and like be good at
Yeah.
something now because like the expectations leveled up. And now I'm in this kind of secondary mindset where I have probably about 1,600 commendations.
Uh-huh.
I get a lot of them from Crystalline Conflict. I probably the last 700 like all came from Crystalline Conflict
Oh,
in such a
wow.
short amount of time. And I can get a mentor crown. And
Oh.
on one hand, I want to be a mentor. I want to help people because I try to be as good of a person as I can to new Sprout. I get excited when I see a Sprout in a like
Yeah,
leveling roulette and stuff,
totally.
and I want to help them out and everything. But at the same time, like the mentor crown has some like weird stigmas attached to it, and I kind of like don't want to have that put on me because like I still die in raid fights and stuff like that, and I don't want someone to go like, well, that mentor doesn't know what they're doing, and I'm like,
Right.
yeah, but I also am doing this because I want to help Sprouts, you know. So
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know,
I
it's a
totally
weird
feel
one.
the same way. Because I was like, I wanna well, I asked a crown person. I was like, "What does the crown mean?" They were like, "Oh, it means I'm a mentor." I'm like, "Whoa, that is so cool." Like, I
Yeah,
wish I had known that when I was a Sprout, because then I would have really, like, if I had seen a crown knowing what it was, I would have asked more questions. But, like, it's like I have the enthusiasm of someone who wants to be a mentor, but I'm totally still a noob. But I'm like,
yeah.
"You know what? I'll just make my YouTube channel," you know? I'll just make my videos, and if there's someone who, like, stumbles upon it and is a, casual player in 2022
Well,
like me, then, that's
I
where
think
they
it
can be mentored.
I think it's a really good thing that you're doing. I mean, especially for new players, right? To have someone in the space like from from a 5-month-year-old player or 5-month
Yeah.
old player, kind of just really getting into all this and kind of being able to talk from that perspective. Cause I think even for me, I still kind of consider myself a new player in a way. But sometimes I feel like, I've talking with you today, like the whole 5.3 and talking about all these patches. I'm like, oh, I'm in deep now. Like I know the lingo. Like I've
Yeah.
watched a million lore videos. Like
Yeah.
I know things now. Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, but I think so. My perspective on that, I think, is kind of gone, and I think it's really great to have a constant kind of influx of new creators for the game and everything, just helping people who may have had fears of like not wanting to play this game because it's an MMO and everything, and giving people that perspective is, I think, really great.
Well, honestly, like there was I had just known too many people who had the same it's it's funny because I go on Twitter and I see the memes about the whole like critically acclaimed MMORPG thing, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
know that's a meme, but like literally, as a 37-year-old who felt disconnected from games, like that's honestly the thing that worked on me was that there was a free trial, and like you can
Uh-huh.
play it solo, and I was like, okay, so I was like, I actually know people who, you know, we're just in a different life stage. Like the commitment of like, do I want to put 50 hours into a game is different than like I was willing to try anything,
Mhm.
10 years ago. And I was like, I really feel like I have not heard enough of this game. Like this game did not get through to me and would not have gotten through to me if not for my brother. And like that
Mhm.
sucks. It could have just easily passed me by. And, like, that's so scary to me because it means so much to me. So I was like, I
Yeah.
need to try to, you know, I don't know, do what
Pay
I
it forward.
can. Yeah,
And I think
because it's just so fun.
I think that's what, like that's, I think, what's so unique about the 14 community is like everybody is like in it to pay it forward. I think in a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
not everybody. There are of course a few handfuls of people out there that are not in it for the best interest, like in any game. But I feel
But
like,
a surprising amount.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's definitely a
I'm
unique
confident in saying the
community.
vast majority of people here
Yeah. Yeah.
are in it for paying it forward and making it a better place for people. And that's why I'm still doing this YouTube channel, because like
Yeah.
I feel like we should celebrate the good things in gaming, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like
I love that.
everybody just talks about like all the talk, and I'm guilty of this too, like the toxic, like funny things to meme on in games and everything. But 14 I think is one of those just special places in gaming where the best of each one of us is able to come out and is encouraged to come out.
I
And I
love
think
that.
that's fantastic. So I know you've got to go here in a couple of minutes. So I just want to ask you, like, what's next for you in game, and what's next for you, on your YouTube channel, and what you're going to be working on.
Yeah. So, oh man, I'm so excited for my YouTube channel. It's like, I wish I can explain. Like, I know we just met, but dang, the journey of like, I mean, YouTube is hard. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, YouTube
Yeah.
is hard. And it's just been so many things that I've tried. And finally, I feel like something is working in a way that's not like, just analytics working, but
Mhm.
for me, like comes naturally to me. It's been such a fun creative challenge. So I'm very, very excited about that. Um, and so I'm just finishing. I'm getting through New Game Plus. I just got my PS5, so I'm doing like, the screen captures. And it's like a never-ending list of ideas of videos to make. So I'm actually the one bottlenecking here, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited
Yeah.
about it too. And for anyone, in the live chat or who's going to be listening to this later, listening to the recorded version later, make sure to go over and visit HeatherJustPlay. Give her a subscribe on YouTube. Do you just stream on YouTube, right? No Twitch?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, definitely subscribe to Heather over or here on YouTube,
Mhm.
and follow her on Twitter and everywhere else. So you got any other
Yeah.
social medias to plug before you go?
Instagram. I'm on Instagram too at HeatherJustPlay.
Cool. Instagram's the one that passed me by because I'm an old man and I just don't
You
get it.
can't say that to someone older than you. Tom says that to me too. I think
I am a 36-year-old going on 55. So so I'm basically Emmett Selk in a way. I'm ancient
That's funny.
and cantankerous. So
I love that.
all right. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Popoto Pub. Heather, I would love to have you back on another episode. We can talk
Thanks
about
so much.
all
This
kinds
was
of
so
different
much fun.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like we could talk about Parasite Eve. I might have to start a separate show so we can just talk about Parasite Eve for a whole
heck
episode,
yeah, that'd be
because
fun.
that game left an impression on me. And when you said you were asking your science teacher about mitochondria, I'm like,
Did
same
you do
thing.
it too?
Exactly. I started researching. I was like, can you spontaneously combust from mitochondria and like everything? So
That's hilarious.
So I feel
I
like
love
we should talk about some of this stuff at a
Yeah.
later date. So
Sounds good.
all right. Well, take care, everybody. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and if you're
Bye.
listening to us on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. So with that being said, lolly ho, everyone, and peace out.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Popoto Pub. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more episodes. Take care, everyone, and peace out.